let's continue on. I just want to play this Noam Chomsky clip, because when we talk about Bernie Sanders saying that the people who work for Jeff Bezos, unsurprisingly, have a tainted perspective to his politics. They necessarily, I mean, despite the fact that if you look at his platform, issue by issue, his policies are mainstream as far as the American public is concerned. They are, by any definition of the word, at least in terms of what they hold and support, his policies are mainstream. He is not covered in that way. And his policies are not covered in that way. And these are the type of people who are going to work in this type of institution, largely speaking. Not all, but many. That is going to be the editorial thrust. On some level, is going to be broadly status quo. This is a Washington Post has a culture and a pedigree that comes from things like saying that like Bill Clinton is not of this place. I mean, that is the attitude and culture that comes from that paper. The New York Times, no better. In some instances, I think maybe even worse. But here's Noam Chomsky talking about this dynamic.
King.
You don't wait. Like the problem that people had in my work,
with an offended Andrew Marr, I might say.
The problem I had with Hillary Clinton doing those speeches for whatever it was, $250,000, $400,000, whatever it was not that she was going to do something for those banks because they were giving her the money. It's that they knew that she was the type of person who does stuff for them. And that's why they give them the money.
Yeah, they're friends.
Yeah, that's basically it. We are here, right here, you and I, like this. And so I don't need to tell you to do anything. I just know you're going to do it.
Sponsoring organization. Tell me how that works. You're not suggesting that proprietors phone one another up, or that many journalists get their copies spiked, as we say?
It's actually Orwell, you may recall, has an essay called Literary Censorship in England, which was supposed to be the introduction to Animal Farm, except that it never appeared, in which he points out, look, I'm writing about a totalitarian society, but in free democratic England, it's not all that different. And then he says unpopular ideas can be silenced without any force. And then he gives a two-sentence response, which is not very profound, but captures it. He says two reasons. First, the press is owned by wealthy men who have every interest in not having certain things appear. But second, the whole educational system, from the beginning on through, just gets you to understand that there are certain things you just don't say. Well, spelling these things out, that's perfectly correct. I mean, it's the first sentence is what we expand on.
This is what I don't get, because it suggests that, I mean, I'm a joke, people like me are self-censoring.
No, not self-censoring. There's a filtering system that starts in kindergarten, it goes all the way through, and it doesn't work 100%, but it's pretty effective. It selects for obedience and subordination, and especially I think that
so stroppy people won't make it to positions of influence.
Behavior problems, or if you read applications to a graduate school, you see that people will tell you he's not doesn't get along too well with his colleagues. You know how to interpret those things.
I'm just interested in this because I was brought up, like a lot of people, probably post the Watergate film and so on, to believe that journalism was a crusading craft and that there were a lot of disputatious, stroppy, difficult people in journalism. And I have to say, I think I know some of them.
Well, I know some of the best and best-known investigative reporters in the United States. I won't mention names, because whose attitude toward the media is much more cynical than mine. In fact, they regard the media as a sham, and they know and they consciously talk about how they try to play it like a violin. If they see a little opening, they'll try to squeeze something in that ordinarily wouldn't make it through. And it's perfectly true that I'm sure you're speaking for the majority of journalists who are trained, have it driven into their heads that this is a crusading profession, adversarial, we stand up against power, a very self-serving view. On the other hand, in my opinion, I hate to make a value judgment, but the better journalists, and in fact the ones who are often regarded as the best journalists, have quite a different picture.
Owned.
Well, first of all, what I love about that is like he is subtweeting the guy sitting right across from him.
Before subtweeting even existed, Noam Chomsky mastered it in
I am-
interview formats.
I am talking about you, just in case you were actually wondering, but I'm not going to say that. And